Welcome back to Opinion Journal. I'm Mary Kissel. The House passed an extension of the nation's debt ceiling through May 18th, just yesterday by a vote of 285 to 144. But who actually won here? Assistant Editorial Page Editor James Freeman joins me now. James, I thought House Speaker Boehner wanted $1 in spending cuts for every dollar that we raise the debt ceiling. Looks to me like a loss, but you say otherwise.
Well, it's a question. That is the Boehner rule. That was the rule he enforced in 2011 and got the sequester. Hallelujah! Finally, a little government spending restraint. But I noticed there's been some difference of opinion. Mickey Kaus, writer at the Daily Caller, saying, "Hey, look, this is actually a victory for Republicans because President Obama said he wanted a long-term debt limit increase. He didn't want to play these games, and they have basically persuaded him to accept a short-term extension, but not paid for under the Boehner rule, so maybe a draw." The real question is what happens in April when this comes up again.
So let me get this straight. So Mickey Kaus basically says you play like you're crazy, you go right up to the line, and then when you're not so crazy, people accept what you're offering to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was all that crazy to expect to demand some spending reform when you raise the debt ceiling beyond $16 trillion. Seems sort of reasonable that you'd want to put a limit on it. But I think whether it was a win or it was not a win, I think it was wise because it was very clear that the Republicans, neither in the Senate nor in the House, had come to an agreement on what it was they wanted to get in return for a debt limit increase. And with a few months, I think they're hoping they can take the time to figure out what's the reasonable ask that we can get that the president may, although he doesn't want to cut any spending, may be possibly forced into. And I think if they're thinking along those lines, where they ought to go is cutting pay and benefits for federal civilian workers. I think that's the kind of reform where there's actually a fair amount of money there. It's not going to solve our debt problem, but you can make some reforms there, and you prevent the president from saying you're throwing old ladies and infants into the snow.
Maybe taking a page out of New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who sort of played the public unions off the private sector unions to say, why do these guys get the benefits and you don't? On that, we also have more news. Paul Ryan said yesterday he's preparing a budget plan that would basically eliminate the annual federal deficit in a decade without raising taxes. How does that fit in to this debt ceiling strategy?
Well, I think this is progress if you are someone who wants the government to spend no more than it takes in, because you recall his previous plan last year took a few decades to get to balance. Now he's saying they're going to do it more quickly. I would imagine that this is partly the result of the tax increase that the president just succeeded in achieving here, is that the government now thinks it will take in all kinds of revenue and make it a little easier to balance. But I think it does tell you that restraining spending is still a big part of the Republican agenda. That's what Republican voters want. And I think Paul Ryan knows as well as anyone else that he's also got to pair this message with a message about growth, because it's hard if you're talking about cutting spending all the time to get people optimistic that you actually have a plan for growth. And he does, and the Republicans do, and they probably need to talk more about that.
I want to go back to the debt ceiling deal, because part of that was meant also to highlight the fact that the Senate has sat on its hands for 4 years. Is there a concerted effort now by the GOP to expose what the other side is doing?
That's right. Part of this deal, this extension of the debt limit, says you in the House and the Senate have to pass budgets as the law requires you to do every year.
Imagine that.
And I know a lot of people outside Washington, they're saying, well, they could pass whatever budget they want. What kind of reform is that? And the point is that this is actually creating a problem for Harry Reid, the Democratic Majority Leader in the Senate, because what it's making him do is something he's avoided for years, is actually put on paper, here's what we support. And it's a target that then Republicans can shoot at. So by forcing, but the good thing for the country is what it does is it makes him come up with a realistic list of spending that can pass the Senate. And that's step one toward responsibility, is at least to say, here's what this body is willing to support and put our names to and be accountable for.
Democrats, responsible spending, I'll believe it when I see it. Assistant Editorial Page Editor James Freeman, thanks for being with us.